The Arnab Sonia matter has really blown up over yesterday and today. Obviously, it all began with the viral clip of Arnab, who was questioning Sonia Gandhi's silence over the Palghar lynching matter. But what I'm interested in particularly, and for which I'm going to take R. Jagannathan's help today, is the nature of the blowback that he's received over yesterday and today. Because you had a social media campaign that was calling for him, first of all, to be arrested, secondly, for him to be sacked from a TV channel that he owns, and then he faced an attack late at night.
See, Arnab Goswami has redefined TV journalism twice, not once, but twice. First at Times Now, and now with his own channel, which is Republic TV. Right? So he poses a threat in a sense because he provides a simple counter narrative to what the other channels are providing, many others. Though not, we can't say all of them are of the same type. But the fact is that nobody takes on people as aggressively as Arnab. You don't have to be a fan of his own programming techniques to know that he has changed the landscape. Okay, so that is the thing. So when somebody threatens your business model, your journalism model, and your loyalties to a previous ecosystem, then it is going to have a huge blowback, no matter whether you're Arnab Goswami or anybody else. That is where it's not just Arnab. If you see, the left liberal ecosystem is calling some other channels, not even Republic, calling them Godi media, as though they are directly beholden to Modi and company. That they can have a view of their own is dismissed. Only their own view is the correct one. So that's what's happening here. So the blowback was to be expected. Surprising that it has come now, but actually not so surprising because he made a direct reference to Sonia Gandhi, and there she is the holiest of holies as far as the previous ecosystem, which is globally still not previous, it's current. You can see reflections coming in New York Times and Washington Post supporting that ecosystem.
Really wrong, don't you think, with this understanding of freedom of speech and expression? There is a certain section that is always talking about it, but when people who they don't like say something, then all of a sudden that principle of freedom of speech and expression is dropped to the side, and calls for their arrest and other things are made.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been no question at all that the left illiberal ecosystem believes that freedom of speech is something they will certify. They will decide what constitutes freedom of speech and what does not. So they've been doing this consistently. They've been doing this even in the US. For example, in many campuses, they do not allow what they consider to be right-wing voices to come. So that's happening there also. And now it's happening here. And let's not also forget one thing. There is a media oligarchy that believes that it is above everybody else, and its freedom of speech is more than the importance of freedom of speech to the common person. Therefore, if you are a Kamlesh Tiwari and you get murdered, your freedom of speech does not matter. But it does matter if somebody from the preferred ecosystem of the left liberal caucus is somehow denied in some way the right to free speech, or the way they were defined.
Right. You mentioned Godi media just a while back, and this allegation is always made that there are some media houses that are in the pocket of, say, the Prime Minister's administration. But it always seems like we're not allowed to touch the other side, which is, always responding, almost towing the line of the Congress party and others.
Yeah, I think we need to see two things. One is media is fairly polarized now between people who broadly support Modi, even if they are critical. Like, for example, Swarajya. We have actually supported many of his policies, but we are also been highly critical of it. But people might think we are Godi media, even though we have nothing to do with the government. Similarly, in TV, that's the same case with a couple of channels, which have been fair to the Modi government. For them, that becomes Godi media. Because if you do not have a negative view of the Modi government or the BJP or the RSS, then you are considered beholden to the government when nothing is the case. The government actually has done nothing for them. But that's the case. That's the way they look at it.
Right. Jaggi, also going forward, what do you think? This is going to be how media is going to operate, highly polarized, people taking completely different sides. How do you see it changing over the next year?
Well, if the left illiberal media has an attack of conscience, if at some point they introspect and decide what truly constitutes freedom of speech, freedom of religion, those are the freedoms which they claim to be fighting for. If they find they have a neutral definition for what is secularism, what is not, then you will find that there is far more meeting ground between so-called one polarized side and the other. As long as this is a system and polarization that was set up entirely by the left. Once they defined themselves as, look, we are the guys with the right voices, then it became incumbent on the other side to give the other side. So the polarization happened because of the left. Similarly, when they say that, okay, what we say is the truth, you guys belong to the untruth group, then how do you avoid polarization? You have to stop labeling people. You have to stop thinking and start listening to the argument inherent in what anybody says. I hope the left liberal media, or rather the left illiberal media, does a lot of introspection. Once they do that, I think the middle ground, the meeting ground can easily be found. We are all human beings. We are all media who want the country's interest to be kept up front. And we have no enmity with anybody in any media. I hope they also realize that.
Great. Jaggi, thank you so much.
Thank you.